Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today I want to talk about the cost of Hearthstone yet again. I did this video about 2 expansion cycles ago, I think 7-8 months ago, and it was an important time to do it then because that's when they restructured the pricing for a lot of the other regions in the world, largely because there was a bit of a fall in the US dollar, and, well, because they could. That's really the ultimate thing, and I'll get to that in a second. Well, they did that a little bit again, but it was to a fairly large market of the game, to Canadians. So prior to, I guess, this week-ish, if you had the mobile client, you could pay the US dollar prices in Canadian dollars through the Android store, and that was pretty good. You basically got packs at a discount if you were a Canadian Hearthstone player, and who doesn't love that? Well, they changed that around. Now you pay still in Canadian dollars, but they readjusted the prices, and they're considerably higher. So they're actually so high that the pre-order is more expensive than just buying 50 packs. So they really went overboard on that, much like they did 2 expansion cycles ago, and that's prompted a lot of the discussion, and I feel that I can add quite a lot to that because I've been following this issue through Hearthstone's entire history. One very important note that I want to, actually 2 important notes that I want to deliver before I get started. It is going to be a bit of a rant video, but it's also a constructive and informative video, so a bit of a mix, so don't confuse the rant with the rest. The first point I want to make is Blizzard is a big company. I don't think it's fair to go after and blame just Hearthstone for doing that or these guys for doing that. I think I don't know, but I think it's fair to assume that the people that work on the game, the people that hype the game, like Broad and the other developers, they most likely have nothing to do with setting the prices, especially for the different regions and all that. I'm pretty sure that's like Blizzard accounting, and probably those guys barely even play the games that they're manipulating the currencies of. So that's a pretty important distinction. So I don't think it's fair to trash the game as a whole because of that, but a lot of this ties into the game, and I urge possibly the people who have a voice inside Blizzard to maybe take a look at some of the ways these things are handled. The other thing that I really want to mention is the way that they release these announcements leaves it in such poor taste. So what I mean by that is, I don't know how long ago, I would estimate a few weeks, maybe a month back, Blizzard actually had an announcement that they would change the currency costs in the game client to match the countries of where those players made the purchases from. And they said that they would do this so people feel more at home using their own currencies when they're playing Hearthstone, right? So what a load of bullshit. And man, like it's just best to not say these things, because we know that means we're going to hike up the prices in Hearthstone. Why make this into like a fabricated positive situation where everybody knows it's anything but? And yeah, going back into the history of the cost increases in Hearthstone has a hell of a lot more cards now, more than ever actually, because it's the end of a standard cycle. The next expansion after Kobolds and Catacombs is going to knock out the expansions released in 2016 from the standard format, so that's an important thing. Right now you have to have the most cards ever, and Kobolds and Catacombs is going to be in the standard format in the shortest time possible. Nonetheless, the costs involved are the same, and for some regions, like Canadians, like myself, that price is actually considerably higher, like 40% higher. Crazy, right? So the other factors involved when they started doing this like standard thing, they announced that they'll be doing only pack expansions moving forward. Now, personally, I don't have a problem with that if they are going to be of the same standard of Knights of the Frozen Throne. I think in terms of content, Knights of the Frozen Throne was truly exceptional. The PV adventure content that was free, I think easily outclassed the hell out of a lot of the previous adventure expansions. Like, it's not even close to Karazhan. Karazhan was terrible. It was just a rushed garbage PvE expansion. Some of the cards are pretty interesting, but the PvE expansion was not good. Knights of the Frozen Throne was spectacular. Having played World of Warcraft and seeing how they adapted not just the bosses from World of Warcraft, the phases of the bosses from World of Warcraft were, immaculately adapted in Hearthstone. It was beautiful. If that's the level of content we can expect, I understand I have more money to spend and I'm willing to spend more money on the game, but I have no problem paying a premium every 3 to 4 months for an expansion if that's the quality of content we're going to get. So as opposed to the last time I did this video, I do think that their content is better than before. But nonetheless, there's so many cards you have to get. When you had the old adventure expansions, you paid like 20 or 30 bucks and you got all of the cards that someone who typically pays hundreds or thousands of dollars a year playing Hearthstone would get. So the free-to-play or the low-budget typical player experience was on par, but now every 3 to 4 months that's challenged. Also, for whatever reason, they find some excuse to come up with far more legendaries than before. And that is a problem in its own because while not a lot of the legendaries end up being played, people don't know which ones to make, and because their budget is so limited, because this content wall hits them every 3 to 4 months, whenever an expansion comes out, they just don't really play. If you know that you'll only be able to craft, a couple of legendaries at a maximum, you have to wait until the meta is settled until you can do that. And that's a big problem. It might not seem like one, but it really is. Because the best time to play Hearthstone is when the meta is not figured out. The best time to play Hearthstone is when no one really knows what's going on and they want to try new things. But the typical Hearthstone player is preventing themselves from trying new things because they essentially can't afford it. So the aspect of cost is directly lowering the quality of play. And that really sucks. There are a few other aspects here. I think the main reason why so many people are disappointed with the increased costs of Hearthstone is because Hearthstone didn't always cost this much. When Hearthstone came out, I think it was a good, not great, but good free-to-play game. Solid. You could play it for free. It was challenging. You had to be good. You had to put in a lot of time. But it was good. You could do it. With each expansion, it's just further and further. Now, with all the factors that I've mentioned and probably a few that I've forgotten, it's insane. The free-to-play experience is not good. To start as a new player is close to impossible. And yeah, I think Blizzard gets away with it because they just have the biggest card game out there. They have the most people playing. They have the richest community. And more importantly than that, it is a mobile game. Mobile games, if you rank Hearthstone with other mobile games, Hearthstone doesn't really cost that much. And a lot of their player base started in the PC environment where people actually don't pay that much for the games that they play. And it is now primarily a mobile game where people do pay a hefty amount to play some games, often at least. So we have a lot of these players that played for many years that were used to, putting up like 20 or 30 bucks every expansion, doing okay, playing a lot, and closing the gap between the people who pay a lot more. But nowadays, Hearthstone is scaled to be like many times more than that as a requirement, and I think they justify it because people ultimately pay that much. Yeah, that's really the end of it. I feel that the people in charge of setting the costs of Hearthstone really don't give a shit other than doing their job the best way they can, which means squeezing the most money out of the game as possible. So, if one day they do the math and they find that if they multiply the cost of a Hearthstone pack by 10, they would make more money, I think they would do that. I think the other stuff doesn't really matter to the people who are in charge of that. This is, just assumptions, to be clear, but that seems to be the trend. The timing that they do this right before expansions are released, in the poor taste that they do it by, BSing it up, saying it as a positive thing, I can't think it's any other, anything else going on in this case. The main reason why I wanted to do this video is a point that through some discussion while I was streaming the other night, I realized that I think is so important. Going back to Knights of the Frozen Throne, I think in terms of an expansion, in terms of design, in terms of effort that they put in, it was at a peak for Hearthstone. I think it was the best expansion in terms of the effort and quality they put in. However, we know there were some issues with balancing. We know that, after 4 days of playing, Death Knights were a huge problem in Arena. Cards like Bone Mare, cards like Scalebane were a huge problem in Arena. Classes like Druid were a huge problem in Constructed. A month into the expansion, I'd have subscribers send me logs at high rank, sometimes legend rank. I remember receiving one from Zeddy that was something like out of 70 games, he played 60 something, maybe it was 68 Druids, right? That's not okay. It's just not okay. And they didn't actually change this until month and a half, 2 months had gone by. That's unacceptable in my mind. I think it's okay to release an expansion. It's unreasonable to expect perfection, but I think it's also unreasonable to have change coming in that slowly. I think it's ridiculous. When the problems are so clear, the fact that changes don't happen for such a long period of time literally sabotages all the effort and all the great content that they put into these expansions. And, we asked them about it. We asked them, why does it take so long to nerf? Why are these changes not happening? And often what we hear back is that people have been spending a lot of time building up these decks. So for instance, someone might be spending the first month and a half of the expansions building up to the Jade Druid list, and they finally nerfed it, and then that player is really unhappy and they quit. But then that's the part I didn't quite realize. The prohibitive cost of Hearthstone is literally ruining the quality of the game for everyone. The reason that nerfs are not happening or changes to the game are not happening more frequently, which in my opinion is possibly the only thing wrong with Hearthstone, by the way, is because the cost to play Hearthstone is really high, which leads to most people playing the game spending way too long building up to the decks that they inevitably nerf. So yes, if you take a look at the other card games where you can make these decks a lot more quickly, you can play more broken down versions of them a lot better, as you could before in Hearthstone. Some of these decks just don't work. You can't play 70% of a Jade Druid list because Jades just suck. So I think this needs to be taken into account, and the overall accessibility of top tier decks needs to be substantially lowered so people who play them, don't have to have this 1 to 2 month build up to actually own the decks, which means that Blizzard could actually change the game when it absolutely, beyond any doubt, has to be changed as soon as possible. So that's the message. That's a lot of the connecting the dots that I had that I wanted to inform you guys of. It obviously sucks when they increase the cost of the game, when they do all that, but I think the increased cost of the game directly ruins the enjoyment of the game for everybody. And I think that's when it starts becoming not okay whatsoever. So let me know what you think. Hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts, and I want to leave you guys with the opposite end of it. Golden packs! So if you missed it, the Twitch Prime reward for this month is a golden pack in Hearthstone. Basically, it's just a standard classic pack, but every card is forced to be golden, so that's pretty cool. But more than anything, it's account-wide, so if you have an account with multiple regions, you get it on each of those regions. So in my case, I opened 3 golden packs. Yay! So yeah, check those out. Golden pack opening experience. What a time.
These accounts could really use some dust.
Bam! Oh, it's a sad piece of crap pack. Yeah. Yeah, that's it's not an ideal pack. Alright, this is the newest free-to-play account. I need some goods here. Wow. The cards are decent though. There's like some outside chance some of those might get nerfed. Yeah, we'll see. Nope. Nope. Oh! Can I exit the screen? No. I was thinking if I got legendary, could I go back to my collection and disenchant a legendary that I want golden? Oh, those are all pretty good cards. Mailhouse. Wow. That's the first golden legendary I ever crafted. Value.